Oroco surprised us this morning. We got some press release about South Zone results, and I was actually surprised myself. I was like, wow, they're pretty good. So I'm here with Malte, and we're gonna talk about it together. Malte, were you surprised as I was surprised?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting 14 holes altogether. It's like almost 9,000 meters of drilling, so it's the biggest release yet. And obviously, there's some really good holes in there. There's a couple of duds, but that's exploratory drilling. You know, it kind of shows us once again how special the North Zone is and how nice it was to have the historical to guide us. And in the South Zone, it's a bit more, traditional exploratory drilling, where we do have the guidance of those 10, 15 original holes. And yeah, there's some really good holes in there. So I did not expect to see a 0.58 over almost 200 meters close to surface in the South Zone. So yeah, very happy with that.
Well, and considering that the historical results from the south were all inferred, so they were all, waste. They weren't counted at all, and now we're getting these results. This is going to add some serious tonnage.
Yeah, I mean, they already mentioned in the news release we have 2,000 meters of strike now, and that's just with 20 holes or 18 holes. And I like how they broke it down into like 3 segments too. And if you look at the plan view right here, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit there. I don't think I can. Can I? Yeah. Nope, I can't. You can see how they're talking about the northernmost 500 meters. There's going to remain a gap here.
On the
On the
left,
left, yeah.
you have the plus sign. You can zoom in. No. Yeah.
Nope, it doesn't. Nope, doesn't work because I think I'm sharing the screen. Anyways, now you can see the top gap here is going to remain empty. That's what they're talking about in the news release with the northern part. Then you have the middle section where that's more of the moderate grade are, and there's a couple of holes that only have 20, 30 meters. And then as we go into the southern part, that's really where where the meat and the potatoes are. I mean, there's some really good holes in there. Hopefully we get a few more holes in that area. But yeah, we can just go through them one by one if you want to.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Yep, this is big enough where you can see that, right? So yeah, we got S18. They put the best one up front. They put in the title for the first time, right? So that's a good sign, And I think if you can read between the lines, with Richard's quote and a few other, little paragraphs that they put in the news release, I think they're very happy, saying several times how it's going to add significant tonnage to the resource estimate and support of the upcoming PEA. And yeah, I mean, hole 18 is, that's probably what we were hoping for in Brazil, and here we are in the South Zone, and a lot of mineralization, right? That's 450 meter plus and 0.58 for 200 meters, very close to surface. And hopefully, they can plug a few more holes in that area, maybe at a different angle, because if they can get 2 or 3 more of those, that might be a separate startup pit. I don't know how that's gonna work with capital expenditure, how much it would cost to have 2 startup pits, but it would be very accretive to NPV and internal rate of return, right? If you can, mine more high grade early, that's really where the boost to the NPV comes from, right? Adding tonnage is great. More moderate grade tonnage, sure, that you want to get to a certain volume, certain size. But if you can get you can mine 0.58 for the first 2-3 years, that's going to help a lot in terms of increasing NPV and IRR. And then we have S17, same thing. Decent grade. It's interesting because it's not as predictable as in the North Zone in terms of the 3D IP, right? In the 3D IP, you could really it was paint by numbers. You could the westward expansion, especially on the west slope, you could really tell how far the mineralization is going to go. And in the South Zone, I think the colors, we still have to figure out what the hot pink really means, and what the more orangey colors mean. So they have some more work to do. Keep scrolling down. S14 too. I mean, all these holes, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, all in the southern part of the South Zone, show a really nice cluster of grade. This one too, S16, next to the older hole, number 3. I mean, 350 meter of 0.4, that's a North Zone level hole right there. But the difference is it starts from surface, right? So there's a bunch of holes that have similar or better grade as the North Zone, but you don't have 200 or 300 meter of limestone cap above them. So I think the South Zone could have very good strip ratio. So we'll, be interesting to see how the PEA kind of includes that. If are we going to stay with the North Zone as the startup pit? Are we going to maybe just start in the northeast part of the North Zone and then go to the South Zone for several years to mine stuff close to surface and then go back for the second decade into the North Zone? It's going to be really interesting to see how Ausenco and SRK kind of crunch the numbers and crunch the data to see, where the most value is located. Yeah, S15. I mean, I got to digest them a bit more in detail because 14 holes and got to look at them on Verify again. I looked earlier, and I mean, just looking and Verify for 3 minutes, you can see how there's so much mineralization outside those historical holes. What you were saying a few minutes ago, how the South Zone didn't really add much in terms of tonnage, and so whatever is being drilled in the South Zone and outside those historical holes is quickly going to add very nice tonnage to the resource estimate. You got any thoughts?
No, I'm just listening to your analysis.
Yeah, no, I think it's it's a more of a traditional result, right? We've been so spoiled. This is the first time where you're like, yeah, we have 14 holes. Some of them are really, really good. Some are kind of, in line with what you expect. And then there's some where you're like, yeah, they just clipped the edge of the mineralization right here, where, if we look at number 5 right here, you can see, oh, there's a little bit here, a little bit there, but yeah, they didn't really hit it. And that's how, how traditionally it's supposed to be, right? You're not supposed to hit every hole. And I think people forget how efficient the North Zone drill program was, that really every single hole, up to hole 43, I think, where we are now in the North Zone, every hole hit. And so I don't think Oroco gets enough credit for that. How it's been a very efficient drill program, no misses in the North Zone. And South Zone, yeah, a few holes that were maybe disappointing, but then also, a couple holes that are really, really good. And that hole 18, the last one, that's a very nice hole. 450 meter from surface with a 200 meter of 0.58 and another long section of 0.4. That's going to add significant value. Yeah, here's another example. I mean, they drilled South Zone 10, right? And based on the colors from the 3D IP, you would have probably assumed that was going to hit something, and all it did was 16 meters at the top. So I think it's probably pretty interesting, thinking back to some of the geologists, who we spoke to in October, November when we were there too, that North Zone is largely figured out, right? They have a geological model now. They understand what's what, and they were able to wrap it up. And in the South Zone, I think they still have some more learning to do, and really understanding how the deposit is oriented, yeah, more to learn, more to drill. That's kind of the big question, right? So are we going to go back, and are we going to drill more? I think the blog post said that one of the rigs was remaining on standby, and we have our own rig. So, hopefully as we, move through Q1 and Q2, they can, poke a few more holes, and, two or three more holes, like number 18, and you got something, right? That would probably be a nice, high grade zone. I mean, this is better than the high grade in the North Zone, right? The high grade in the North Zone that they confirmed was 60 meter, 80 meter, 90 meter of 0.62, 0.61, 0.58 or something. And this is a good chunk. This is almost 200 meter of 0.58 close to surface. So South Zone is definitely, in my opinion, over delivering. I was imagining South Zone to be more of a,
like I was thinking like 0.3. Like,
yeah, but yeah, exactly. And I was thinking, okay, they're gonna start in North Zone. They're gonna get the high grade there, and then the second decade, or maybe the third decade, they're just gonna keep mining the 0.3 stuff that has really good strip ratio and close to surface in the South Zone. And the South Zone, I was imagining, yeah, it's gonna have a lot of tonnage, but well, suddenly there's 200 meters of 0.58. So definitely over delivering, and that's kind of one of the things I always liked about Santo Tomas, that you had a lot of outs, right? Like not everything had to be 100% successful, right? You had the North Zone, which gave you a great historical foundation. You knew you had 800 million tons, and you only had to increase that by 100 or 200 million tons to get to that 1 billion tons, and that's 20-year mine life at at 125,000 tons a day. So that you already had, from the beginning, you were almost where you needed to be. And then you had the potential of the westward expansion, which very successful, right? Out of those 12, 15 holes that were drilled in the west slope, they all hit it perfectly. Again, you can look and verify and see how everything is kind of stepped out to the west. And then, of course, we had the promise of Brazilus, and so far that promise has not delivered that much. We know there's mineralization there. There's 0.4 there, pretty deep, but there's a huge area still to explore. But then the right decision was to focus on the North Zone, where you knew you had value, and to go into the South Zone and leave Brazilus for another day. And who knows, that it'll maybe we'll go back, maybe someone else will go back. I think there's a lot of possibilities. And then you had the potential of the South Zone, and you didn't need all of those different pieces of the puzzle to fit perfectly. You just needed some of them, and I think North and South Zone both over delivered. North Zone over delivered in terms of tonnage expansion to the west, and lower strip ratio, because you're coming closer to the surface on the west slope, and now the South Zone is over delivering as well. It looks like it's continuous, and you have high grade. So I'm very happy, and I think it's gonna come together nicely in the resource estimate and in the PEA in the next 10-12 weeks.
all right, perfect. Do you want to do any more holes or any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I would just urge people to go to verify and go fly around. It's a huge file now. I was loading it earlier. It's 130 megabyte or something, because they have all the holes in it. On the day of the release, releasing 9,000 meters of drilling in one use release. I mean, this is not this is not the minor leagues anymore. Like they know what they're doing. These are really good holes close to surface. I'm very happy, and I think people should be excited about the next 2 or 3 months with the resource estimate and the PEA. And I think a lot of people will be surprised about the value that's there.
I'm just curious. I know you and a lot of people know what I think about the stock price, but I'm sure a lot of people want to know what you think about the stock price now, based on what has been accomplished so far.
It's I don't even look anymore. I mean, if you ask me where we're trading at today, I don't even know. I haven't like I used to follow it closely, right, when we had nice rallies and there was the stock price matched the value. I think it's just irrational. I think people want to read headlines about 1,000 meter of 1 point something, but I think Oroco's value proposition is very sound. With good infrastructure, very good strip ratio, and I think everything is going to kind of come together in the next 2 or 3 months, with the MET results probably coming out, resource estimate. That's going to be a lot of tonnage, and then we'll get the PEA. And I think a lot of people that were maybe skeptical that how much value there really is, I think there is really good value, and I think continuous steady progress with good to excellent holes. And today was definitely an excellent hole. It's the best hole of the whole drill campaign so far, and they're just going to keep doing what they're doing and create value for the shareholders.
I mean, even somebody that follows me on YouTube that doesn't own Oroco told me, wow, these were the best results up to date.
Yeah, and I think that's, that's indicative of how simplistic the thinking of shareholders or of investors really is, right? Because when other juniors release results about 1,200 meters of 1 point something percent, like on first glimpse, that's a really good result. But then people maybe forget that the location, it's really deep. The engineers are probably going to have the last word of if and how and when that can actually be mined. And while a 0.4 or 0.45 close to surface is just not that attractive, I think people don't understand that. Yes, grade is important, but there's a lot of other factors, and Oroco checks a lot of those boxes. Good infrastructure, good jurisdiction, far enough from the local town, but close enough to that you have qualified labor, really good community support. And I was talking to a colleague here in Tahoe, where I live, who used to be a geologist for 30 years and actually had been at Santo Tomas back in the 80s, so he's pretty familiar with it. And he told me that little things like in most open pit mining, you drive uphill with the trucks loaded, right? So you have significant cost because you're using more fuel driving the heavy trucks, up the road out of the pit. And then on the way down, you're empty, so you can't really generate any additional spare electricity or power. While at Santo Tomas, you're driving downhill with the trucks loaded, and so those huge mining trucks that use thousands and thousands of gallons a year. I saw a number earlier that's 2 million gallons of fuel a year per truck. So you do the math, that's like $10 million a year in fuel cost per truck, and per giant trucks. But at Santo Tomas, the potential exists to, for example, use electric trucks, and they do exist now. Rio Tinto, I think, has converted some projects completely to electric trucks, and so the same thing could be done here, where on the way downhill, when the trucks are loaded and heavy, you're loaded and you're driving downhill, so you can actually generate electricity and store it on board the truck. And then when you come back from the mill, you drive uphill, but you're empty. So the power you generated on the way down when the truck was heavy is probably going to be enough to bring you back up the hill. And so it's those little things that that add up and improve the economics. So I think there's a lot that people don't really understand. They just want to see 1,000 meter of 1%, and they think there's really good value there. And there is, but at the same time, you can also have 300 or 400 meter close to surface of 0.4, or today 0.5, 0.58, and you can also have really good value there. And so I think there's going to be a re-rate coming in the next 1 or 2 quarters when people actually see some numbers on paper.
Another thing that I think is holding the stock back is the competition from other ideas. That I mean, Oroco is one of the pretty girls, but there's a lot of pretty girls out there, and people have choices.
Yeah, and people are just impatient too. I think like all the buzz that was there when when the permits were granted, and then drilling, I think it's fair to say was off to a slow start. There was a learning curve, right? Putting together the team and the infrastructure, and getting drilling off the ground, and the Brazilius rig was stuck, and so then there was huge anticipation about Brazilius, and which were objectively not fulfilled, or not fulfilled yet. But I think since this time last year, Q1, Q2 last year, there haven't been any missteps, right? I mean, they drilled 40 plus holes in the North Zone, a quick 20 holes in the South Zone. Richard has that focused, and you and I, we hung out with him and traveled with him a few months ago, and got to see how comfortable he is, and how he had choices of where he wanted to go in terms of projects he wanted to work on. And there's a reason he chose Santo Tomas, because it's it's easy, right? That's what they kept telling us, that there's, you want a clear path to this becoming a mine, and there is a very clear path. And I think a lot of people who maybe don't see that path because they haven't done the research, they haven't invested, the hundreds of hours that you and I have invested. I think, hopefully they'll be able to invest some time and read the PEA when it comes out, and maybe understand that they were a little short-sighted, or didn't really give it the credit it deserved. I think the team has done an excellent job to unlock value, and eventually the share price is going to reflect that.